Rain poured down that morning, washing the city streets clean. But nothing could wash away the hunger that lived inside Martha's world. She bent over a metal trash bin behind an old restaurant, her torn gloves soaked, her fingers red from the cold. Every piece of metal, every bottle, every can meant food for her babies. Behind her, under a worn blanket inside a cardboard box, 3 small cries filled the alley. She turned quickly, her tired eyes softening. "Hush now," she whispered. "Mom is here." The babies were only 2 years old when she found them. Left near the river, alone and crying. 2 boys and 1 girl. No one claimed them. Martha had nothing, yet she couldn't walk away. She gave them names. Luke, Daniel, and Rose. They were her reason to wake up, her reason to keep breathing. She picked up a half loaf of bread someone had thrown away. She brushed off the dirt and smiled weakly. "It's not much," she said softly, "but it's something." She tore it into 3 pieces, 1 for each child. People passed by, staring in disgust or pity. Some crossed the street to avoid her. Others whispered, "That crazy trash woman again." She heard it all, but she never fought back. Martha believed silence carried more dignity than words. At night, she sat beside the weak fire behind her shack, telling her baby stories about the stars. She would point at the sky and say, "Each one of those lights is watching over you." Her voice trembled, but her love never did. One evening, she was digging behind a restaurant when a cook shouted, "Get away from there, woman! You're scaring the customers!" Martha bowed her head and left quietly, clutching what little food she'd found. When she reached her shack, she found her babies crying again. She wrapped them in her arms, kissed their foreheads, and whispered, "I don't need the world. I just need you 3 to live." That night she couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling and wondered if they would survive another winter. But when the morning sun rose, she got up again, ready to fight for them. Years passed. Luke learned to help her push the cart. Daniel collected bottles with her. Rose stayed behind to tidy their small home made of scrap wood and metal sheets. They laughed together. Even on hungry nights, Martha often said, "We may be poor, but we have each other. And that's enough." But deep down she worried what would happen when they grew up. The world could be cruel, and her love might not always be enough to protect them. She was right. Their greatest test was coming soon. 15 years later, the alley that once echoed with children's cries now carried the sounds of work and struggle. Luke, now 17, worked at a mechanic's shop. Daniel washed cars downtown. Rose, the youngest, studied at a public school, often on an empty stomach. The shack still stood, though its roof leaked whenever it rained. Inside, the air smelled of wood smoke and wet earth. Martha's hair had turned gray. Her back bent, but her eyes still carried warmth. Every evening, the 4 of them sat by a small fire. Daniel often said, "One day we'll build you a real house." "Mom," Martha smiled softly, "my home is wherever you 3 are." Luke saved coins in a glass jar. Rose collected old books from trash piles and taught herself how to read and write. Martha watched them and felt her heart swell with pride. They were her miracle, but one winter night, her body failed her. She came home shivering, her face pale, her hands trembling. She tried to hide it, but Rose noticed. "Mom, you're sick," she said. Martha smiled weakly. "It's just the cold." Within days, her fever worsened. Luke ran through the streets, knocking on pharmacy doors. "Please," he begged. "She needs medicine." "I'll pay later." "No credit, boy," the man replied, shutting the door. He stood outside, helpless, snow soaking through his clothes. At home, Rose sat by Martha's side, holding her hand. "Don't cry." "My little girl," Martha whispered. "You'll grow strong. Promise me that." Rose nodded through tears. "I promise, Mom, we'll take care of you, always." Daniel sold his jacket to buy her medicine. Luke worked longer hours. For weeks, they fought to keep her alive. Finally, her fever broke. When Martha opened her eyes, she saw her children asleep beside her bed, their hands still holding hers. She smiled faintly. "My little fighters." After that day, she could no longer work like before, so her children took over her burden. Luke repaired bicycles until midnight. Daniel carried crates at the market. Rose taught children in the alley to read. Neighbors began to whisper, "That trash woman raised them right," and Martha, though tired, felt peace. One afternoon, Luke overheard two men talking near the junkyard. "There's a scholarship for poor kids, full support. Some company downtown." That night, Luke told his brother and sister, "We'll try. We'll study. We'll make a new life." Martha listened from her bed, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Even if I don't live to see it," she said softly, "I know you'll make me proud." Time passed. The alley grew quieter without the children's laughter. Luke and Daniel joined the scholarship program. Rose got accepted to a city college. Martha stayed behind, alone in her small wooden home. Every day she looked at their old toys, their tiny shoes, their scribbled drawings on the wall. At night, she sat by the fire whispering their names. Letters began to arrive. Rose wrote about classrooms, bright lights, new friends. Luke sent short notes about his engineering studies. Daniel sent money when he could, always ending his letters with, "I'll come home soon." Martha kept every letter in a box under her pillow. When she missed them too much, she opened the box and read them again and again until she fell asleep. Her body grew weak. Her hair turned white, but her hope never faded. She continued collecting what little she could, refusing to accept help from others. "I want them to find me strong," she would say. Then one summer morning, a letter arrived with a golden seal. It was from Rose. "Mom, please come to the city. I'm graduating. I need you there." Martha's hands trembled. She took her cleanest dress, washed her scarf, and boarded a crowded bus. When she reached the university, the guards frowned. "I'm here for my daughter's graduation," she said quietly. After a pause, they nodded and let her in. The hall was grand, filled with people in fine clothes. Martha stood at the back, eyes wide. Then she saw her, Rose, radiant and confident, standing on stage. "My name is Rose," she said, "and I am here because of my mother, who raised us by collecting trash, who taught us what love really means." The hall went silent, then erupted in applause. Martha covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, all her pain, hunger, and shame disappeared. Her daughter had become the voice of her pride. Her sons had built their own paths, but what came next would leave her speechless forever. Months later, Martha walked back to her alley. The shack where she once lived was gone. In its place stood a white house with a porch, flowers and bright curtains fluttering in the breeze. Luke stood by the gate, smiling. Daniel was painting the fence. Rose held a basket of fresh bread. Martha froze. "Whose house is this?" Luke stepped closer. "Yours, Mom." She stared at them, speechless. Rose took her hand and guided her inside. The walls were filled with framed photos, Luke in his graduation gown, Daniel with his workers, Rose standing beside her students, and in the center, one photo of Martha sitting by her cart smiling. "We built this together," Daniel said. "You gave us life. Now it's our turn." Martha covered her face, sobbing quietly. All she ever wanted was for them to survive. Now they were giving her the life she never dreamed of. Neighbors gathered outside, whispering in awe. The same people who once avoided her now stood in respect. That evening, the family sat together on the porch. The air was soft, the sky painted gold. Martha looked at her children and said, "I never wanted riches. I just wanted you three to be free." Luke placed his hand over hers. "You freed us, Mom, from hunger, from fear, from giving up." As the sun sank behind the city, Martha smiled for the first time without worry. Her children's laughter filled the yard. She leaned back, eyes closed, her heart finally at peace. The woman who once lived collecting trash had built a legacy through love. Her story spread across the town, not as a tale of poverty, but of strength. Because sometimes the poorest hearts hold the richest souls, and as night fell over the quiet street, Martha whispered a final thank you to the stars she used to tell her children about.